Let's go. Cleared to play. We're going to take you inside the tent, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. Proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment and bring in Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Doc, the 49ers don't play tonight. I just thought I'd let you know.
Man, yeah. No, it's a tough one for the Bay Area. Yeah.
Let's get into some of these injuries. And I actually want to start with Dre Greenlaw. What are we looking at? What's a realistic thought on when Dre Greenlaw is playing good football again?
Yeah, I think putting aside the Aaron Rodgers kind of, data and Cam Akers, I mean, you're typically looking at 9 to 12 months in terms of when someone can be effective. Now, could he potentially be back for the first half of the season, that 7-8 month mark and be on the field? Totally a possibility. But in general, if you look at linebackers, they're a little bit stronger, a little bit more force going across that Achilles. I would anticipate 9 to 10 months before we see him being impactful on the field.
Man, so that means that he's basically out for the year next year, wouldn't you say, Doc? I mean, 9 months would be November, 10 months would be December. Is it even sensible at that point to try to make a go and come back at all next year?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult decision. Do you come back and do you risk, potentially another injury by coming back later half of the year? Or even if he is on one of these accelerated protocols where players come back earlier, is it worth to come back at 6 to 7 months and then have an injury somewhere else? So absolutely, I think the next season for him is definitely a question mark. Would I be surprised if he comes back early? I mean, with all the techniques and rehab, it's possible, but we just don't have a good track record on players coming back early, particularly at that position.
Aaron Rodgers' doctor thinks he'll be ready for training camp, but we'll see. So what about Arik Armstead to find out that he was playing through a torn meniscus, everything that we've known about his foot? How does that adjust the way you sort of assess his play?
Yeah, it does, make a little bit more sense now. When he was on the injury report, they said he had, quote unquote, a knee injury and was dealing with this foot injury. It does make sense. They probably were giving him some more time for that knee inflammation to go down, because when you have a meniscus tear, it's going to cause irritation and pain. And part of this is just getting the knee a little bit more calmed down so they can deal with inflammation that builds up over several games. So the fact that he was looking actually pretty good in those playoff games is pretty remarkable for someone dealing with a meniscus tear at that position. I think the key thing is going to be, when is he going to return? If he gets this shaved out, it could be a 4 to 6 week recovery, and he's got a full off season to recover. If you're looking at more of the repair, it could be 4 to 6 months, and then you're talking about, is he going into training camp not being able to do a lot of impactful work before the season starts?
Does the sport you play determine a large part about what repair you're going to do? Because I'm looking at Joel Embiid, who had I think he had just the removal, even as a basketball player. That seems surprising to me. Are there new techniques now that Armstead could go about as a football player that might help his return to play be faster?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a couple things. Number one is that we've learned that you can really push the rehab after a repair. A lot of those 6 to 9 month timelines came from the fact that we just weren't pushing people early on because we were afraid that we would kind of stress the repair. So I think the rehab will allow him to potentially, if he gets to repair, come back potentially a little bit sooner. And then number two, there's a lot of additional things we do at the time of repair, increasing blood flow to the area, kind of more minimally invasive techniques that allow him to heal more quickly and then train a little bit better. But the one thing we can change is the size. For someone like at his position who's very big, there's a lot of force going across that meniscus, but hopefully these little things at the margins can help him recover a little bit quicker and potentially get back from a repair.
Doc Pandya with us on Willard and Dibs, as he is every week. Doc, what'd you make of the George Kittle injury? What'd you see there when he left the field?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit bizarre. I mean, very rarely do you see a player kind of run to the locker room at a critical part of the game and then come back with look like a, kind of a bandage under his shoulder. The one thing you worry about, was this some sort of shoulder separation or some sort of, AC issue where he needed a little bit more support just to help with the pain to be impactful. And he went back out there, but he definitely looked throughout the game. He looked like he was in pain. He didn't seem like his normal self. So I do wonder, was there something else in his upper body that was bothering him in addition to his toe that was impacting his play?
Deebo Samuel goes down in what seemed to be a really scary situation, turned out to be a bit of a hamstring. Is this something to keep an eye on in the future, with Deebo seeming to have these soft tissue injuries pretty often?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he had a relatively good soft tissue season this year. Obviously, he was dealing with a shoulder fracture, but I think that's the nature of Deebo. What makes him so beneficial as a player is that he can play the running back position. He plays a wide receiver position, but that's a lot of stress. And he's a large individual who's playing a lot of at the explosive kind of explosive manner. So absolutely, I think that's something you always have to worry about with him. But he did have a pretty good season from this standpoint. It looked like it was just more of a cramp than a true strain with his hamstring. So hopefully he gets a good off season and he's back for next year nice and healthy.
Doc, we're going to kick it to next week to get into some of the Warrior stuff with GP2 and CP3 and all of that, but a really good Super Bowl breakdown. Thank you so much for everything throughout the football season, and we look forward to continuing.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, there it is. Doc Pandya, the proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.